Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on Citizen Developer, a new role for quality and supply chain professionals. My name is Kevin Bogert, and I will be your host today. Just a little information about me. I work for Azimuth Compliance Consulting. We specialize in quality and regulatory consulting services for life science manufacturing. We also sell software in the areas of labeling, artwork management, BPM or business process management, quality management, and validation. Okay, my agenda for today is to tell you or talk to you about citizen development. What is a citizen developer? What is low code, no code? What your focus should be as a citizen developer, what skills you need, and ASQ Quality 4.0 principles as it relates to Quality 4.0 and the concept of people, process, technology. And where do you go from here? Quick poll that I want to present just to get an idea of the audience and what your knowledge is of citizen developer. So I'm going to launch a poll right now. Going to keep it here for about 10, 15 seconds. Please complete it, and I'm going to stop it now. Okay, let's continue on. So what is citizen development? Here's a little brief definition of it. Citizen development has to do basically with providing a platform of low code, no code to non-IT people, but is sanctioned by IT as a platform for developing business applications. I will go more into what these type business applications are that you should take on as a citizen developer. So what is a citizen developer? It's a subject matter expert with little or no coding experience, but has a concept of how to build applications that are used in the business and are used with a low code, no code platform. The platforms empower subject matter experts to create new or change existing business applications. According to Gartner, 61% of organizations either have or plan to have active citizen development initiatives. This means if it isn't in your organization, it will be there soon. So what is low code, no code? Concept that most of you may or may not have heard about. Low code, you still have the ability to write some code, but it's minimal. Most of it is done by drag drop, visual blocks of existing code with some configuration allowing you to do certain things. But you could build some basic rules, calculations, so forth that you can store and use later. No code solutions are pretty much pure drag and drop configure. A visual development environment, you can see how your screen is going to look, how your process will go, who's responsible for what. It uses the concepts of swim lanes when you build your processes, and the ability to display only certain sections of a form as you work through the process. The form's purpose is basically to capture data. They do have limited interface capabilities to other applications, and there's a main reason for this, as most IT people do not know how to properly configure these interfaces, and two, the security, which is probably the most important thing of these interfaces. Okay, what is citizen development? Why is it important? Low code, no code platforms allow business leaders to build the applications, again, with little reliance on IT. You're more likely to reduce your application backlog by as much as 12% because you are taking on the role of doing these small applications that IT just doesn't have the time for due to either resource constraints or other projects. These low code, no code platforms require minimal amount of training to actually build an application. A few days and you're on your own. I will touch on those skills that you need or can obtain to be proficient at building these applications. So what should be your focus? Low-code solutions, they have limitations that force you as a citizen developer to create less complex applications. You're not going to write an ERP system, but you may write a log that captures data for temperatures of a refrigerator at certain times of the day, or something like a process, maybe improving a kappa process or a change control process. These are things you can take on. These additional limitations you have is the customization. You cannot really change much of the forms or the workflows, how they perform. The tools you have are based on some standards out there called BPMN 2.0 that says these are what these drag drop fields can do, or processes in the workflow. They have limited integration options, meaning you can't easily integrate the systems external to your environment, meaning some vendor provided interface to a system. You can't do that without the assistance of IT, because this entails more security than the system will allow. But one thing you can do are your business critical system or non-critical systems, I'm saying. So again, those processes that you just want to reduce the paperwork for. Forms typically are a good example of a process to automate. Now, when you do these automations, one of the things you really have to realize is you're not automating the form, you're automating a process. You have to think that way when you do this. According to Gartner, survey of 55 participants, this is some information. Forms are data collection applications that replace manual processes that are dependent on forms. Again, when you do this, you're focused on the process. How do I streamline the process? And you may do more than one form as you work on that process and eliminate these forms, which is most likely a problem for many organizations. For an example of a low-code, no-code tool, such as SoftExpert, enables the quality department to have their own standard QMS tools, such as document control, training, CAP, etc., but also have what we call an IBM tool or a low-code, no-code tool to automate those manual processes that could interface with these other things like training or CAPAs on one platform. Another type of system is what you may have heard as bots. These are systems or code that can automate or orchestrate a business process, such as accounts payable, where you're doing the repeated thing over and over and go. We're working with invoice processing for purchasing department. These tools, such as Agapus, allows you to build these little bots that run and process a wide variety of data. So your main focus would be those type of apps that are form type processes, very manual, or email type systems that you're sending everything by email versus entering it into a system, or spreadsheets. Those are the biggest ones you would want to take on. You can build those calculations just as you can in a spreadsheet. In these tools, they have the functions that allow you to do that. So why use spreadsheets anymore when you can present the system to 100 people at one time to enter the data? Sorry, went the wrong way there. So benefits, speed of development. These low-code, no-code platforms enable business users to design and build with a point-and-click type action. You look at the screen or you look at the process and say, I want to do this at this particular spot. I want to collect this information, or I want to send an email, or I want an approval from somebody on the data that's been entered. That's what these platforms allow you to do. Or display data as view only, somebody can see it, or that they can update it. It all comes down to what you need to do at that particular step of the process. And one of the nice things is you need minimal IT support, as you heard me say a few times already, but you may have to have some when applications become a little more complex, or you want to build something and they're getting ideas of how best to display it on the screen or retrieve it from the screen or from another system. One of the big things these low-code, no-code platforms do is facilitate what we call digital transformation. It allows you to move away from a manual process to an automated process. So some cultural changes you need to look at. Business teams typically do not build their own applications and may resist doing so. So you may have some resistance from people that are involved and say, I don't know how to do that, or I don't want to be involved in this. So those are challenges you need to overcome. Now, training and testing. This is not a big item on the low-code, no-code platform. These are fairly easy to use systems that allow, again, drag and drop configure. Some training on requirements gathering, how to build it, when should I schedule meetings with the users, and all this will be covered in a future slide. But your focus needs to be on building quality software. This is why you want IT involvement. What should you not focus on? If it's a large user base, 1,000 users will be using the system, may not be a good one to take on. The impact to the business, if this is a critical system, you don't want to take it on, because if it fails, you're going to have to try to fix it. If it fails in the middle of the night, you're going to get the call. So you don't want to take that type of system on. Security, if it is security intensive, like handling financial transactions, not a process you want to automate. Business continuity, if this system is dependent heavily on something fails in the business and this is a system that needs to continue running, it's not one you want to take on. Or if it has a high regulatory compliance requirement, you have to look at this and say, is this something I want to do as part of my automation process? Or is this something I should send to a consultant or IT that has much more experience in building these type of applications? Here's some just additional stuff on complexity of applications. I'm not going to read line by line, but you get an idea. There's no need for custom programming. If they do have to have custom programming, it's outside the scope of the citizen developer. If it needs to operate across different applications, not within the platform, but different applications, external, like an ERP system, a laboratory system, or some other type system like that, you probably do not want to take it on, because that interface capability is very difficult for many people to understand. So what skills do you need to be a citizen developer? One thing I found that's very important is Lean Six Sigma tools. SIPOC. I'm not sure if you ever heard of SIPOC, but this means supply, input, process, output, customer. So let's break that down a little bit. Supply, who is providing that information, or where is that information coming from? How's it entered into the system? How's it going to be processed? How's it going to be displayed, and who is it going to be displayed to? That's basically what SIPOC means. You have to go through a step-by-step process of each phase determining what the SIPOC is. Value stream mapping. What's the value of that step in the process? Is it necessary? Now, some big ones are problem solving, how to solve problems with technology or process. So problem solving and improvement and A3 problem solving are important skills to learn. Requirements gathering. You're going to hear this word agile quite often through the rest of the slides. This is an easy way for non-IT people to collect requirements. This concept of user stories and storyboards. So user stories are individual, what you would look at as requirements, but in a human readable way. I want this to do this. Storyboards are those stories and where they are in the phase. Backlog is what hasn't been completed yet. And there's other processes within the agile model. Project management, another big thing. Project charter, so you define the scope of what you actually are going to be automating. Gantt chart, when you're going to do different parts of that, different phases, when you're going to finish. One important thing, Scrum meetings. These are held typically on daily or every other day basis with the end user of the system and with other participants to get their input as to what it looks like right now, what needs to change, what's broken. So you know what you need to fix within the next day or two prior to the next Scrum meeting. You should not take on stuff that cannot be finished within a day at a time from a Scrum meeting. You need to break it down into smaller pieces if it's that big. If it's going to take a week, it's too large of a piece to try to take on. It needs to be done within a 24 to 48 hour period, 2 days max. Low code, no code platform training. Very important that you understand the tool you're going to be using. These are not complex, takes a few days to be trained on them. You'll continue to learn new things as you go. Ask a lot of questions of the vendor or the IT of how things can be done within the platform. Important, software design and development. You want to adhere to traditional software development lifecycle methodology, beginning and endpoints, how things should be displayed, the AI, user interface. Highly recommend, again, use Agile versus Waterfall. Agile is a more, as it means, agile, very flexible. Waterfall is not. You define your requirements and that's what you build. Show it to the user, doesn't meet the needs, you start over again and make changes. Agile is a daily thing that you're constantly using Scrum meetings to determine the needs of the user of that application and make those changes. So at the end of the process, you have an application that actually meets the needs of the user. And then for those companies that have to deal with validation, we highly recommend an agile approach of validation versus a Gantt waterfall approach. Much more efficient, less paperwork, but more things are proven to work. Okay, here's a little questionnaire. I wanted you to take about a minute and read through this and answer each one. For each question, for each A, give yourself 3 points. For each B, give yourself 2 points, and for every C you answer, give 1 point. On the next screen, I'm going to tell you how you enter or how you stack up. We'll do a little simple poll so I capture this information, and we'll see what happens. So we'll give a few more minutes here. I'm going to give you a total of 1 minute, and then I'm going to move on to the poll and capture what actually you have entered or responded to see where you fit in. Shall I be a citizen developer or not? Okay, let's stop. Let's move to the next slide where I'm going to do a little poll. Okay, so here's the poll I'm going to be presenting to see how you score. Are you a candidate for being a citizen developer? Let's launch this. Give you about 15 seconds to respond. Okay, I'm going to close this poll now. Thank you for answering it, and we'll see how you do. So, the question is, if you have less than 8 points, I do not recommend, and this little quiz we gave you does not recommend you become a citizen developer. If you have 8 to 11 points, you're a good candidate for being a citizen developer. If you have greater than 11 points, it's a fit. You can become a citizen developer, just with the necessary training that you need. So let's continue on. Oh, sorry. Yep, Deming's quote, very important on that, advocate of Deming and some of his teachings. One of the things he mentions, data are not taken for museum purpose. What does this mean? If you have a form, paper process, and you have a form and you fill it out, and all you do is file that then after you're done and waiting for some auditor to come in to say, did you do this? What's the purpose? From a quality improvement, there is none, because you're just collecting that data onto a form and putting it in a vault for later displaying is a museum piece. The purpose of taking that data is to do some action in the future. The purpose of what you're doing as a citizen developer is to collect as much data so in the future you can predict what could come out of that or where problems may occur. How could I improve things? Another good quote from Deming is, if you can't describe that process you're trying to automate, you don't want to know what you're doing. You're not the right person then. You need to find somebody that is a subject matter expert on that process that you want to automate. Okay, ASQ Quality 4.0 principles. They mentioned these tools. Back in the 50s, Ishikawa and Deming came out with their tools. In the 90s, you heard about Lean Six Sigma came out with their quality tools. And now ASQ Quality 4.0 comes out with its tools. You have artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, and so forth. The problem is, this is heavily dependent on data. If you ever used Amazon, I'm pretty sure most people have, when you go on there, it says, here's my recommendation based on the history of what you've been doing. That's AI at work. It recommends things that you should do and buy in the future. Sends you little emails every once in a while saying, hey, we highly recommend this book, or you buy this device, or you buy something from them. That's using AI based on the data they have been collecting. And that's your purpose. You're going to use low-code, no-code platforms, which are typically called business process management tools, to collect data for the purpose of doing analysis. Figure out where problems could be in the future, or to how to improve a process now. So to continue, ASQ Quality 4.0 talks about three things: people, process, technology. In the people part, they're looking at the quality professionals. I expand that out a little bit further to the supply chain people as well. It says your role is changing. As a quality person, you're changing from the reactive enforcer type person to more of a proactive innovator type person. You're constantly improving because you have data that tells you where your improvements are needed. Process. You need to really understand your process if you're going to automate. A concept I'm going to mention here is data integrity. This is well known by the life science sector for making sure that the data you collect adds value, that you don't make products that are deficient. When you start automating, this becomes a very key tool in your process that you're automating. You need to make sure that data you collect is valid. Technology. Years ago, this kind of technology was only done by the Fortune 500 companies. Very expensive, put in big data systems, needed big servers, so forth. That has changed. Technology now is what we call a great leveler, because it gives any individual or small company the idea and intent to be able to automate many systems that large organizations used to do with big IT staff. That's changing. So your role as a quality professional, for instance, is no more as a data analyst, but more as they call a data wrangler, figuring out what this data all means. And by using these tools that ASQ Quality 4.0 mentions, like AI and so forth, to do predictive type analysis of the future, what could happen, or again, to improve a workflow or process, to reduce the amount of paperwork you have, it puts you at risk for data integrity observations. So to continue on, where do you go from here? Well, one term you may hear in the future is business process management. Here's some information about it. They allow you to automate your quality and manufacturing processes. Truthfully, any process within an organization, you can automate on a BPM platform. They have the way to do mobile integrations and mobile displays of data and capture and so forth, using all the functionality on those devices. They're fully web-based applications when they're delivered. You compile a lot of data. You can process the data with the analytical tools they have, fairly easy to use. but they're more of a development platform than they are a low-code, no-code platform. They do have version control of the processing of forms, but again, they're more heavily code dependent. So these are not really a fit for a low-code, no-code platform or for the citizen developer, because you still need to be dependent on IT. They're heavily code-based. IBPM, or Intelligence Business Process Management. This is a fit for the low-code, no-code type platform for citizen developers. It has all the things or features of a BPM. It allows you to integrate all those tools mentioned by ASQ, like artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, and so forth. It has advanced analytics and KPIs for dashboards. Because you're collecting this data, you want to display the data. One recommendation here, when you're looking to take on a project, I mentioned SciPoc, you look at the end and work backwards. What I mean by that is, if I want to get a report out, I need to collect all that data for that report. So I have to think about that as I'm building my application. What is my final output? Your input is dependent on it. Your processing is dependent on that. So think about that as you build your application. You start from the customer, what is expected, and work backwards. Now, one of the cons is that technology that makes it possible to automate decision-making and data analysis has not fully matured. They're still working on some of this technology to make it better. It's probably 95% there. But some of these platforms haven't totally integrated to all those tools. So let's do a real quick survey. Basically, what I want to know from you is, have you ever heard of an IBM tool, or is it available to you in your organization? So let's launch a real quick questionnaire. Take about 5 seconds. I'll let it run for 15, and we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. Thank you for answering it. Next, one more concept that you may never have heard about, what is called quality intelligent business process management. What is this? It has all the capabilities of an IBPM platform, or low-code, no-code platform, but it adds all the quality features that companies are looking for, like document control, training, audit, maintenance and calibration, and process components like kappa, change control, deviation, etc. It has what we call lean process modeling tools. So Six Sigma is built into the process module where you do your process workflow mapping. Also has quality tools from the 50s and the 90s, such as Ishikawa charts, 5 Whys, control charts, fault tree analysis, and so forth. All these tools that you use on a daily basis in your quality organization. Problem is, only a few vendors are available on the market. One of them I mentioned, which was SoftExpert. There's a few other ones out there. So a real quick poll here about QIBPM. Just want to know if you ever heard about it, or if it's used in your organization. Some companies are using this. Some of the companies we actually work with. Okay, I'm going to stop this poll. Now continue on. Oh, sorry, went a little too fast. That happens with this tool. Okay, where do you go from here? Now, for life science companies, for instance, data integrity is reduced as these systems come fully compliant with 21 CFR Part 11. If you're a European company, GDPR is called, or General Data Protection Regulation. For healthcare type companies, or those in the medical world, and even life science, HIPAA requirements, and then other government standards. These come basically as part of the solution, especially for those QIBPM platforms. They have Part 11, they have GDPR, they have HIPAA requirements, all built into them. Quicker delivery, big difference between IT-based, heavily coded platforms and low-code, no-code platforms. You can deliver an application 4 to 6 weeks, fully validated. Validation time for those life science companies is greatly reduced. You use what's called Agile versus Gamp's waterfall method. Best way to do it. Unfortunately, this is a recorded webinar, so I do have questions and answers, but I won't be taking them. But you can send us email to us, and we will respond, or contact us, and we'll give you answers to any questions you may have. I'd like to thank you for participating, and have a nice day.